guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the third time I'm filming this. The first time I completed the whole video, I am using my iPhone and I'm using iMovie. And even though everything is in frame when I'm filming and I have plenty of space, something happens when I use iMovie that it actually magnifies everything, brings it forward. So then pieces of the book are cut out. Then I started filming it just earlier today and I forgot to press play. So I am going to be discussing May completed pages 2024 today. So with the stats, I just started my YouTube channel a few weeks ago. So I thought that was kind of funny. I started with 0. I ended up with a whopping 23 subscribers. So I'm up 23. If you're feeling sorry for me right now that I only have 23 subscribers, I would be okay with a sympathy click right now. Otherwise, I'd be glad to have you come back to the channel. On Instagram, that's my other account, I started with about 660. I didn't know I was keeping this at the beginning of the month, so I think that was roughly what I had. I ended up with 697, so I'm up 37. So thank you everyone for subscribing, joining, and even watching today, even if you don't subscribe. I thought tracking my hashtags would be interesting as well. So I used 3 hashtags. I usually do a little bit more, but I think with the start of the YouTube channel, I kind of got away from it. So I used CWL Carlson May SH24 in Grains of Gold. That's hosted by Colored with Love 2021. For hashtag Doors of May, I use that in Gnomes in the Neighborhood. That is hosted by Creative Tints. And then I did the Galaxy White Lines in Magical Dawn, and that is hosted by Faye NNN or Fane. So those are my stats. So we'll see if I keep this up and if it gets much better. So I hope it does anyway. Let me get started with what I worked on. The first one is Joanna Basford's Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. And this is a group buddy color with some amazing women. There's several of us on this group, but we try to color this in order every month. I started a little late, so I do have some blank pages in the front that I have to try to catch up with. But we worked on this raven or crow page, double page spread. I'm okay with it. I may have rushed it a little bit, and I think I definitely did at the end just to complete it, and I feel badly about that because I like to work on my books. I like to enjoy my process, but I don't know what happened, but I think I just rushed it. But anyway, what I used on this, I used Neo Color in the background on this page as well. I used a little bit of my Albert Dürer watercolor pencils. I have Prismacolor, Jelly Roll, Signo Gold. That's Jelly Roll. On this side, I used the same. Plus, I used the Artex acrylic markers to lighten some of the lines. Overall, I'm okay with it. I did try to make lines to make it look like feathers, but that didn't work out. So I ended up just painting with the Artex acrylic paint markers, which I actually like doing more than I like using it for colored lines. They're really juicy pens. They have an amazing flow, but the tip is a little too soft with someone as heavy-handed as I am. And my lines are never really nice and thin. They're usually quite thick, no matter how hard I try not to make them so. So this is May 2024 in Joanna Basford's Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. The next book is Symphony of Cute Animals by Kanoko Agusa. And I did this tulip page. I really like the way this one came out. I like how bright and vibrant it is. I am still trying to learn, as I just mentioned, how to use my Neo Color 2, which I used in the background and in the grass. I'm not able to get a smooth finish yet. So in the sky, it is sort of noticeable, but in the grass, it kind of worked out for me. It made it look like there were different color variations in the grass. So I really like the way that came out. Okay. The watercolors I used were mostly the Sennelier watercolors, the Albert Dürer, the Neo Color 2. My dry mediums were the Prismacolor pencils, gel pens, and again the Artex to lighten the black lines. So overall, I still do like it. I think it came out nice and colorful. So that is Symphony of Cute Animals by Kanoko Agusa. The next image is a PDF from Ellie Marks. She offered it as a Happy Mother's Day gift on her Facebook page, and I think that was really, really sweet of her to do. Originally, I tried to use only my Ohuhu alcohol markers, and in the beginning, it worked out really well. But when I got further along, I felt like I wasn't really shading as well as I could have. So I ended up just going in with Prismacolor pencils just to shade, darken some spots. I also tried using the Artex paint markers again, and this is like a really good example to show how thick my lines end up getting just because of that really, really soft tip. So on this one, I ended up just whitening or lightening the lines with a gel pen, and this one I didn't even bother, I don't think. But I am going to use these as bookmarks so that I don't have to use so many of these little white tabby things or colored tabs. I'm going to cut them down, and then I might try going to my local craft store and seeing if I could get some kind of plastic sheets to kind of put over it to seal them so they don't get all ratty and tattered. But again, this is a PDF from Ellie Marks. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you. Next up, I have The Ink House by Rory Dobner. A simple page, but I really like the way it came out. This is almost all Inktense pencils activated with water, and then in a few spots I went in and darkened with my Prismacolors. Again, I tried to learn how to use just the pencils themselves to offer the shading as well, but in some spots I felt like it really needed a little bit of something. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but I did use I think it was a Jelly Roll Sparkle pen or just glitter pen. It looks pretty nice on. I just used it on the chain and somewhere in the lines of the ship. I like the way it came out. I'm pretty sure you can't see that though. But that is what I completed in The Ink House by Rory Dobner. Next up is a new book for me. This is the first drawing, and I absolutely love her. She came out so beautiful, but it's really hard when there's a portrait this beautiful to screw it up. I think even if I messed it up, this is still such a beautiful image. I think I would be happy with it anyway. I basically used mostly my Polychromos pencils here. I did use the Tim Holtz Oxide ink in the background. I used the Artex paint markers to lighten some of the lines. I followed mostly her image. I did make a few changes. I darkened the jeans. I changed slightly some of the flowers, and I lightened her hair a little bit. So that is Garden Lady by Lana Green. Next up, I have Meine Reise durch Asien by Rita Berman. This is every month I screw up something, and this is this month's screw up. I loved it so much, and then I thought about getting creative, and that's when I messed up the page. Basically, ignore this for a second. This is mostly, I think this is some pan pastel, some chalk pastel from Mungio. Then I used my Prismacolor pencils to darken and shade. I also used those pencils in, I don't know what this thing is, but whatever this thing is. And I used some glitter gel pens. I think the silver Signo. I think that's it on there. And then came my creativity. I thought this was too blank a piece. And instead of just putting some leaves, which I didn't think of at the time, I thought, oh, I have rubber stamps and I have some stencils of some flowers. Let me try that. So I actually stenciled it onto a piece of tracing paper, put the tracing paper over it, and I thought it looked pretty good. So I decided to do it. It does not look pretty good at all. I don't know what went wrong, but it doesn't look good. I tried drawing in some pots that I thought, well, maybe I would create 3 pots and it might look a little bit better. And then I thought, I don't like the way it looks. Why keep trying to fix it when I should just eradicate it? So I am going to get, I think, some peach colored gouache because that will cover it. It's very opaque, and color over it, and then see if I could add some leaves in, like I thought after a while might be a good idea, a better idea than what I did. But overall, I think I could fix this page, so we'll see. But that is Minor Risa Durasian by Rita Berman. Next up, I have Grains of Gold by Hannah Carlson. I bought this entire book for this one image that I colored in May. I love this image. First of all, it's absolutely stunning even before it's colored. It is such a fun image. I absolutely love it. For this page, I used the drawing of the Derwent drawing pencils on the hat. I love that line. I hope that someday they expand it because it is so beautiful to work with. I really enjoy those pencils. The rest, I used a combination. I used a couple of light fast pencils, some polychromos, and the Prismacolor Premier. I also used Neocolor 2 on her shirt, and I used the Prismacolor pencils to add some shadows to it. The background is the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide. I tried adding the water, but I don't know if I'm not adding it properly or what, but it didn't come out that great. Some of them, when you add the water, it changes color a little bit. This one didn't. It just became a little lighter. Then I tried going over it a little bit more with the ink to kind of make it a little bit more subtle because I didn't like the way it looked. I've also used Uniball's Signo, the gold and the white. I used some Jelly Roll pens and then the Spectrum Noir glitter or sparkle. I doubt if you can see it, but it is in the clockwork. I added it over everything to just add some sparkle to the gold. Up here, I used the Signo Gold and the white, which isn't as sparkly as the Spectrum Noir, but I still like the way it came out. I've also used the Arteza acrylic markers in some spots to lighten some of the black lines, and I think it came out pretty good on this paper. As I mentioned, sometimes the lines get too thick because I'm heavy-handed, but in this one I was able to get it thin enough that I was happy with it. So this is what I colored in Grains of Gold by Hannah Carlson. The next book is Drumond Vonger by Tomislav Tomic. I struggled with this page a little bit. I used, I think, all Prismacolor pencils except for, I think I used some Brute Fooner in here for like the really light color. It might look white, but it isn't. It's like a really light cream in here. I also used the Neo Color 2 for the background, in addition to adding some Arteza shimmery watercolor, which looks really good in person. It's quite shimmery. And I also added the Spectrum Noir Sparkle to the mermaid all over everything to try to give her an iridescent look. Again, not sure if it really is coming up on camera, but it does look good in person. I did struggle with this because I tried to use a limited color palette of just contrasting colors. So I was just going to do blue and orange, but then it got a little tedious to constantly use those colors and I was running out of colors. So I started adding in some purples and some pinks, which I thought were kind of a nice blend with the blues and the oranges. And I think that's it for this page. Oh, sorry, I did do one other thing. I had not planned to use gouache in the background. I didn't wait for the Signo Gold to really fully dry. So when I moved my hand, it spread the gold across the page and it looked really messy. So I was lucky. I don't have a lot of acrylic gouache, but I was lucky that I found a color that kind of worked with it. And I like the way it came out. It gave it a nice finished look. So I might do that more in the future. I'm not sure, but for this page, the gouache in the background worked. So I like that. And it was a nice fix actually, because it really did look messy. So that is Drumond Vonger by Tomislav Tomic. The next book is Luna by Maria Trolle. And I did this page. I like the way it came out. I think it's really colorful. And I really like the way the background came out. It's a Neo Color 2 background, which I think I got a little bit more in a fluid color rather than it being sort of patchy. So I am happy the way that one came out. I think I just added like 4 or 5 layers to it to get it that way. And I also used a little bit of pencil to darken some of the spots that still were kind of patchy. I also used my Prismacolor pencils, and in a couple of places I used my Albert Dürer. The leaves are mostly Albert Dürer watercolor pencils that I used my Prismacolors to shade over. I also used watercolor. I think I used regular watercolors and my Albert Dürer on the rock, grass, and the water. Again, the water I used Prismacolor pencil. Here I just used very little to shade. I was able to get some shading with the watercolor, which I was really happy about being successful with. The last thing I used, or the last 2 things I used, were the Artex acrylic markers to sort of black out some of the lines or fade some of the black lines. I did it here in the flowers and I didn't like the way it came out, but I left it. Here it was, I was too heavy-handed with the Artex and it came out way too thick. I also used the Signo white in some of the leaves. I added some white dots to cover the black ones. I also used it in here to cover up the wings. And lastly, I tried to do what I see other people do, which is to add these white highlights to make something give the appearance of being shinier. I don't think I know where to put them because this doesn't look good. It doesn't even look normal. It doesn't look like lights. It doesn't look like anything actually, but I left it. There isn't anything I can do about it now, but I am going to have to keep working on that to sort of figure out how to do it. And that's all I used on this image from Luna by Maria Trolle. Next up, I have the Amazon book by Paula Brun. This is such a beautiful book. It's amazing. I would really like to finish this someday, but they are so complex, these images, and so detailed. That's going to take me probably a lifetime, but it is a goal. I can keep working on it. The background here is the Neo color too, and maybe I should have kept adding. This is about 3 coats, but again, you can see how blotchy it comes out. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing wrong. I have watched, I can't remember her name, but my Colorful Country Life does it a lot. And I tried to imitate what she's doing, but I still got a really blotchy look. So maybe I'm not putting it on thick enough. I also used my Polychromos on, is this an Osidi? I'm not sure what animal this is, but it's something like that, an Osidi pygmy. I used my Polychromos on that to try to get some hairlines after I had based it with some, I think the Neo color too, not regular watercolors. I also again used the Artex markers to try to lighten some of the black lines. I used my Albert Dürer in some of the leaves. With my Prismacolors, I again couldn't get a really good blend on some of the leaves. I couldn't get a lot of layers. This is somewhat smooth paper, so it just started to really gunk up. So I decided to try Zest It, which I don't really know how to use, but I gave it a shot. I don't think I used enough because it didn't really spread anything that well. I was kind of nervous because when I put it down, you could kind of see like what I thought was like a greasy mark on the back of the page. It did dry up in the end, so it didn't leave that. So I think next time I am going to try again to use a little bit more Zest It to see if I could get Prismacolors to move around and blend on paper that I'm having difficulty with. So we'll see if that works next time. But otherwise, I really like this page because I love when it comes out this bright and vibrant. And this paper does seem to lend itself to a lot of vibrancy. I don't know what about a paper makes it do that. It might just be me, but I don't know. It came out pretty well, I think. So I'm happy with that page. From Paula Brun's Amazon book. The next book I have is Magical Dawn by Hannah Carlson. And I did this, the white, is it Galaxy White Lines? Like hashtag Galaxy White Lines, I think was the prompt for this one. It was, the one I had was by Faye, N or Fane. I'm not sure if she was the original person that thought of this idea, but whoever it was, and if it's her, it was really clever. And it was so much fun to do. Just splashing Neo colors and watercolors all over the background and not really caring what happens and allowing the watercolor to move and flow on its own is what is so great about working with watercolor. If you want to make watercolor go exactly where you want it to go, you sort of lose something in the magic of watercolor. I think that's in my opinion. Then I thought, when I first started out, would I get bored just copying all of these lines? And I used a white Signo gel pen. And I didn't. I just sat in front of the television and, with my family, and I just used my Signo, and it was really fun. And then at the last minute, I just added a little bit of shading of a white pencil. And this might be the Derwent Drawing White. I don't know what look I was going for, but something made me want to add the white shadows, and I think it looks pretty good. So that was for the hashtag Galaxy White Lines by FAYNNN. So FAYNNN or Fane. So that is my coloring from Magical Dawn by Hannah Carlson. The next image I colored is from Gnomes in the Neighborhood by Denise Klett. And this is the image I colored. I wanted this to look like a hobbit hole. I probably should have painted the door green if that were the case, but I think I got distracted when I started doing it. So it doesn't look like a hobbit hole, but I do like the way it came out. It's nice and colorful. I'm not too crazy about the choice of pinks that I have, especially in the foreground. It looks very garish. It's not so bad in the back because the images are smaller and it's less in your face, but otherwise, I think it's fine. I used several materials here. I did use the Mungio Soft Pastels for the sky. The hills I based, and the flowers actually. So the hills and the flowers I based with the Tombow Dual Brush markers. I used watercolor in the footpath and the grass, or this light colored grass. I tried to use my watercolors to also do some shading. I wasn't that successful there, even in the rocks, so I ended up having to go over it with some Prismacolor pencils. The rocks, I tried to make it look kind of like a speckled, spotted look, like slate, actually. And when the watercolor dried, it dried very, very light and you could barely see it. And that's why I went over with the Prismacolor pencil, and I really like the way it looks. I do kind of think it looks like some kind of organic rock. Otherwise, I don't think there's any sparkle or anything else to the page. So it's almost all Tombow dual brush pens or markers, watercolor, and Prismacolor pencil. So that's what I colored from Gnomes in the Neighborhood by Denise Klett. My last book is Dunkle Bunt by Sarah Richter. Before I show you my image, I absolutely love the way this came out. I am so proud of it. I'm geeking out for a second. I posted it on Instagram and Sarah Richter contacted me and said she really liked the way my image came out and hopes that I am enjoying her images, or thank you for enjoying her images, or something like that. But I was so excited that an artist contacted me. I was absolutely thrilled. I'm such a geek. But let me show you the image. I've talked about it long enough. Oh, I tagged the wrong page. Oh, here she is. Isn't she gorgeous? I never get gold to look this good. I don't know what happened here. I don't know if it was the paper. The paper is absolutely amazing. It's thick cardstock. It is smooth, but there is a little bit of tooth on it. So I was able to get a lot of layers, and that might be the reason why. I also doused this with water, and it did not wrinkle at all. I mean, it is stunning. So what did I use here? Obviously, you saw the back. I based quite a bit of it with alcohol markers. I used, as I mentioned, watercolor in the back, and I used a combination of my polychromos, which I used in the dragon, and I think this is Prismacolor, the rest, the black and everything else. I did try to use the Artex to black out or lighten some of the lines. I don't think it came out that great because I couldn't match the skin tone that well, but I'm still really happy with it. I think this is the best thing I've ever colored, and it's probably just because the gold came out so nicely, but I am so proud of her. So I cannot stop talking about this, and obviously this was my favorite of the month, but that is from Dunkle Bunt by Sarah Richter. So that is it for me for May 2024. As I told you, I did 13 pages, so I'm pretty happy with that. Overall, I thought this was a really good coloring month. I didn't think there were too many disasters. I want to say thank you. I appreciate you all for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and I would love it if you would subscribe and come back for my next video. But I appreciate anything you do, especially just watching. Thanks a lot. Hope to see you next video. Bye.